Hello, Ryan here, aka Mac, and welcome. We have the Squadron 42 monthly report to get through, so let's check out all of its progress. As always, a huge thank you to all of my patrons and channel members, in particular to my latest channel member for repledging, a bad motherfunker. Thank you so much for the support, and if you do appreciate my videos, please do consider subscribing and helping the channel to grow. So, kicking off with the AI content team, as always, AI does make up the majority of the work for Squadron 42's monthly reports. They progressed with the vendor and patron behaviours, with the full flow of NPCs ordering, carrying and consuming food and drink complete. This gives them a sense of life and purpose, as they are always busy doing something. Also, progress continued on the utility behaviour, with AI characters opening crates, taking items out, and also putting items back in. All of this work on the Chow line, interacting with boxes and so on, will eventually come to the persistent universe for all NPCs, so seeing them grab food, eating the food, using items from crates, just building that sense of life. Other tasks for AI content involved polishing the quartermaster behaviour, making animation pose updates, setting up wild lines, overhauling documentation and prototyping food eating. And finally, the team began working on Chapter 15, which is a rundown location with a different feel from other areas. Now for the AI features team, AI animators continued to refine Vanduul execution animations to ensure that they're perceived as strong and impactful from the first-person perspective. They also want to make sure that they are better suited to be played on the spot if an attack occurs in a cramped space, are more believable to be deflected by the player, and allow players to escape or attack once deflected. On the perception system side, the team implemented functionality to allow them to rate and respond to disruptions, which are unexpected scenarios that can be resolved. For example, a light in a room being turned off or an engine being disabled. Players can use this mechanic to try and disrupt NPC behaviours when they haven't been detected, so giving them the opportunity to better infiltrate the level by avoiding patrols and sentries. Players can also use distractions, which is an action that can trigger audio stimuli, such as throwing an object to cause an NPC to leave their position to investigate, with the team saying, "We had to ensure that these events are propagated out to all of the agents or NPCs within an appropriate area, that they are handled by the perception system, rated against the current threat level, and that the correct behaviours are implemented to resolve disruptions. The resolution may involve agents going to investigate the source of the disruption, or alternatively, if too many disruptions have occurred, to increase their level of alertness. This means that they may take out their weapons, say specific alert level wildlines, or respond quicker to subsequent events. We also had to take into consideration that the immediate source of the disruption may not be what the NPC wants to investigate. So for example, the NPC may perceive that a light goes out in a certain room, and so they would want to investigate the light switch that controls the light, and ultimately, if they don't encounter the player, turn the light back on again. Now I must say, it is great hearing about all of the nuances that they are building into this AI system, just to make the NPCs feel more believable and less robotic. As in many games, it is just a case of learning the patterns, and I hope that with all this detail that they are bringing into the AI, they will be much less predictable. Now this month, the team also implemented AI rocket launcher and railgun handling. For the rocket launcher, NPCs have to consider if the shot will cause explosive splash damage to friendly agents, which is a nice touch. So basically, the target they are hitting, ensuring that if there are friendlies around that target, that they won't get damage as well. For the railgun, they changed how the behaviour works in cover, and now NPCs will start charging the weapon while in cover before emerging to shoot it, which I think is pretty cool, so making sure that they're not overexposing themselves for too long of a period. Now continuing with weapon usage, the AI feature team implemented how NPCs pick up weapons and ammunition during combat. Now enemies are under the same ammo constraints as the player, so requiring them to conserve it and use other weapons when they run out. Basically, NPCs will evaluate the best course of action in this situation, including either switching to their secondary weapon, picking up ammunition, or finding a new weapon altogether. And when looking for ammo, they can take it from incapacitated characters, They could take it out of boxes, out of loose weapons, or from stowed weapons on dead or incapacitated characters. And when looking for weapons, they can get them from racks, find them around the area, or take them from other characters. So again, sounds pretty great. No longer will NPCs have an infinite ammo supply. They will have to do the same as the player does and search for more. Also giving more reason to clear up any weapons or ammo left on the floor, like they do in the game Ready or Not, making sure that if there is an NPC that you haven't seen, or even players, they can't come along and pick up a weapon once you've cleared the location. Now for non-combat AI, the team worked on functionality to support NPCs moving cargo from one location to another, including picking up crates, stacking them on a trolley, moving the trolley to a destination, such as a cargo hold, and then taking them off the trolley and restacking them. And this will of course be applicable in the persistent universe one day, especially after the cargo refactor begins rolling out, having to go from port to port and get your cargo loaded and unloaded by hiring NPCs, maybe to aid in the process to speed it up. Now, the team also refined their tools to generate better quality cover. This includes making cover generation more robust to edge cases and supporting recognition of cover over a certain distance from identified cover edges, allowing the cover to be generated in a greater range of areas. And finally, for the AI features team, they took the first steps towards implementing Buddy AI that will support gameplay where the player is accompanied by one or more characters. Now, they made a rapid prototype featuring some of the functionality that might be required to generate conversations about what the final form of this would be and how to fit it into gameplay. And again, when it comes to the persistent universe, hiring an NPC to come with you on foot, be an extra hired gun, this is going to be applicable for that. Now, onto the AI tech team. For perception, the team worked on supporting audio noise levels and audio masking. So audio noise levels ensures that audio stimuli that doesn't surpass the basic background noise won't be heard by listeners, with new tools being implemented to allow for the configuration of noise levels in an area and the type of sound that should be considered normal in that area. And then audio masking kind of flows on from this, making sure that particular audio stimuli are not perceived as abnormal. For example, explosions in a field where fireworks are being tested, and this allows basically for the player to use the environment as audio cover when performing actions. So for example, if you're near a firing range and there are NPCs firing a lot of weapons and you shoot someone, they're less likely to be alerted because they're used to hearing gunfire. Now, the team did implement light extensions to action areas, and these enable the designers to link light groups to an area and automatically calculate whether the state of the environment should be light or dark. And this impacts the time NPCs require to perceive a target, making it easier to stay hidden in darker areas. And the perimeters of the visual field of view were also extended to be overridable based on the AI state. So for example, this allows pilots to see at a greater distance and visually target on-foot characters. And as we have heard recently, they have been working on allowing NPCs to target and fire on things on the ground. So this will allow them to basically see ground targets, meaning that we will certainly need to be hiding more. Now, the team continued to extend navigation links to support two main functionalities. Firstly, they enabled usable routing to function with entity links to allow door panels that are linked to a door to be correctly used by NPCs, so allowing them to understand which panel they should use to trigger the right interaction. And secondly, they exposed a way to define the cost of navigation links based on specific conditions, such as increasing the cost of vaulting when a character is not alerted or walking. So for example, a character wouldn't vault over something, which is a pretty physically demanding action if it's not needed. Now, this is actually quite a small but interesting action. You often see characters in games walking around in a non-alert state, jumping over things, climbing up over objects, instead of just walking around. So this should bring a bit more believability there. Now, they also began to properly allow NPCs to drive ground vehicles, with the team currently verifying the setup of a selection of vehicles to use as reference. They have also set up the code to switch to the right nav mesh when driving a vehicle and select the right path follower. And this will be pretty great to see in the verse, allowing NPCs to properly drive along the surface of a planet, just bringing in more functionality for these NPCs. Now, for the AI vehicle team, they worked with flight design to deliver a turret battle that occurs early in the campaign, and this includes a new behavior that consists of Vanduul ships attacking a javelin turret by picking stunt splines placed by the designers. For the animation team, they continued improving zero-G gameplay, which we got to see at CitizenCon, and animate new weapons, including a coil grenade and coil rifle. I don't think we've seen anything about these coil weapons. If we have, do leave me a comment below. They then moved to blocking out restraint animations and created female spec op and guard animations for the AI team. Blockouts were also done for bin rummaging and the beggar, which is likely a character that you will be able to see rummaging in bins or begging for money during part of the campaign, but again, it's likely an activity or a characteristic that can come to the PU. For the Vanduul, further work was done on execution, pilot posing and sharp turns to improve locomotion, as well as bespoke locomotions being created for the story characters as well. Work was also done on animations for the firing range, and the rig for quadruped predators was tested. So basically a four-legged predator creature rig was tested. That is pretty damn exciting, which likely means there will be some interactions with creatures in Squadron 42, although this could be referring to the whip crab from Pyro, or it could just equally be a new creature specific to a location in the squadron, which will be very nice. And we do actually hear more about creatures in the PU monthly report as well, so do keep your eyes out for that. Finally, a 3-day mocap shoot was done on the new Manchester stage, so in their new offices, focusing on stealth takedowns and mastery levels. I assume that's relating to the player attribute system that Chris Roberts and Rich Tyra spoke about, non-spec op level combatants, and various social AI improvements to better tie them into the environment. Now, for the character art team, they continued modelling major Navy clothing assets and the Screaming Galson's armour, plus they began skinning assets for Shuban. They also continued to support character art, processing the remaining scan data for character heads and creating white box rigging for 2 key models. Now, moving on to the gameplay features team. Following on from persistent entity streaming, the Squadron 42 feature team began implementing the save and load system, utilizing this persistent entity streaming to save progress, and they are currently in the first stages of testing, saving and reloading, ensuring everything restores correctly. The Mission Manager app is currently being implemented into the player's Mobiglass, allowing us to access the mission briefing, current and completed objectives, and a report on how well they did once the mission is complete. It'll be very nice to see this new Mobiglass UI. Hopefully we're not waiting too long to get it into the PU as well. Now, additional polish was given to the new character customizer. Also, work continued on the crane mechanic, adding additional modes for varying types of cranes and their functionality, which will allow the operator to attach, drop, and stack crates. It is going to be very fun using cranes. It also sounds like there will be multiple types of cranes, and if the concept images of the new underground facilities are anything to go by, I'm pretty sure we saw an Argo-looking vehicle, was it Greycat or Argo, with a crane on it? I would certainly buy one of them. Now, moving on to the gameplay story team, they continued using motion capture data to update scenes. The main scene worked on was in Chapter 11, although several scenes were also updated to make them work with the AI characters, who now enter and leave smoothly. Also, start and end poses were updated for scenes in Chapter 4, 6, and 8, with some of them having an extra polish pass to make them function better with the player. Next up, we have the level design team, which saw the FPS team focusing on one of the larger locations in the game that spans multiple chapters. They are closing in on finalizing the last few blockouts of this environment, and gameplay implementation is well underway. With combat AI taking shape, the FPS team also began placing greater emphasis on dealing in enemy confrontations, and the flight team continued to collaborate with the other design teams to push the first half of the game to a more polished state. So that is the full first half of the game being pushed to a polished state. Pretty epic hearing that. Part of the game's dialogue was also written before certain mechanics were in a final state, so some of the tutorials were tweaked to accommodate the final designs. That sounds like at least the first half is pretty much well underway now. Obviously the second half is still needing to be done, but it is great hearing the progress there. Now, for the narrative team, they continued with the detailed review of gameplay chapters, in addition to alterations to several existing scenes to improve clarity. A handful of new scenes had dialogue written and scratch audio recorded, which included a scene with 2 outlaws debating the best way to breach a locked door. With the team saying, a small scene like this serves to provide some flavour and life to the AI combatants, but also helps direct the player towards what their next objective is, and how to potentially bypass a puzzle. The next steps will be to test the dialogue additions during future playthroughs, and make any additional adjustments as needed. Now, development of the new dynamic dialogue system continued, which is used by background characters as they go about their lives. This latest pass led to a more concise line set that will allow for greater flexibility with how lines are used to accommodate a variety of scenarios. And it says these background characters are not meant to distract players from scripted character content, just provide a general sense of activity and immersion. Finally, the team added names and description strings for a variety of naval uniforms, bespoke weapons and military gadgets. They also reviewed updates to the military mobiGlas with regards to how mission information will be displayed, and began the validation process to ensure subtitles match the dialogue as recorded. And I mean, if they're working on subtitles, that's surely something that would be done later on in a project's timeline. Now, for the QA team, they continued supporting cinematics by reproducing issues found during development and chasing up outstanding bugs. Focus was also on bug validation and reporting alongside recording scenes for review. In addition, QA pushed general editor testing forward to ensure the tools used by the team are working as intended, and the development workflow remains stable. Now, for the UI team, they continue to work closely with the vehicle team on the heads-up display and multifunction displays. This involved adjusting the HUD to incorporate new elements, along with reworking the UI style for one manufacturer to give it more character and make it feel more unique. Really looking forward to seeing all the new HUDs, new MFDs. I think this manufacturer they're talking about could be the Aegis one. I believe they were still working on that after this last bout of concept images we saw a long while ago. The vehicle team has some of the new MFD screens working in-game. A pass was done to improve their appearance and help with the building blocks UI setup, just to create a solid template to work from going forwards. And finally, for the UI team, they concepted several new interactive screens for gameplay puzzles and made visual and control improvements to the StarMap. Now, if they're working on visual and control improvements for the StarMap, it sounds like most of the functionality is in there, and they're just working on kind of more downstream elements of the StarMap. So hopefully we get to see it soon, because we are yet to see even a snippet of the new StarMap. Now, we finally have the VFX team. They continued overhauling the particle library, making the most of several improvements to the particle system to allow for greater flexibility. This includes being able to override various settings per effect in the level, letting the artists focus on a higher quality of effect without having to maintain each instance version. Further improvements were also made to the new quantum travel effects, with new refractive particles spawning around a ship's signed distance field. And finally, the VFX team implemented a task pool, which allows the artist to tackle various miscellaneous tasks that have accumulated in the backlog. So, some great progress continuing on there with Squadron 42. Again, heavily focused on AI, building in the functioning AI and NPCs, making them feel more real and act accordingly, but also pushing things to more of a polished state, which is music to my ears. But that is the end of this month's report. As I say, if you do enjoy my videos, please do consider subscribing and helping the channel to grow. Come and hang out over at twitch.tv/supermacbrother. You are all more than welcome over there, and hit that thumbs up if you don't mind. Does the channel a big favour. Tick the little notification bell if you would like to be pinged anytime a video of mine goes live. Big thank you to my patrons and channel members again. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.